All right, let's talk about two numbers you've probably seen everywhere when you're shopping for a new phone, a monitor, or a TV. 60 hertz and 120 hertz. They sound super technical, right? But these numbers can totally change how your screen looks and feels. So, what do they actually mean? And, maybe more importantly, which one is right for you? Let's break it all down. Now, you might be thinking, come on, is this just some marketing gimmick, a bigger number to make me spend more money? But the one thing you need to know is that this is not just a number on a spec sheet. It's a difference you can actually see, and you can definitely feel it. It's the difference between a pretty good screen and one that feels incredibly smooth and just alive. So to really get the difference between 60 and 120, we first have to figure out what we're even measuring. And it all boils down to one little word: hertz. What we're actually talking about here is something called refresh rate. See, your screen isn't a static photograph. It's constantly, and I mean constantly, redrawing the image you see over and over again. The refresh rate, which we measure in hertz, is simply how many times it can draw a new image every single second. Okay, probably the best way to get this is to think about one of those old school flip books. You know, you draw a stick figure on each page and flip it to make a move. A 60-page flip book will definitely create motion. But now imagine a 120-page flip book for that same little animation. It's going to be way, way smoother, right? Your screen works exactly the same way. More frames or pages per second equals a much more fluid image. So now that we know what a refresh rate is, let's get to the main events. It's time for the showdown. In one corner, we have the old standard, the tech you'll find on most devices out there. And in the other corner, we have the new challenger, promising a silky smooth experience. First up, 60 hertz. This just means the screen is updating or refreshing what you see 60 times every second. For years and years, this was the absolute gold standard for pretty much everything with the screen. It works, it's reliable, and it gets the job done. And here's its opponent, 120 hertz. Yup, you guessed it. This screen refreshes itself a whopping 120 times every single second. That's double the information, double the updates. It's drawing twice as many frames in the exact same amount of time. You can really think of it like this. 60 hertz is the classic, reliable family car. We all know it. It works just fine. 120 hertz, that's the modern high-performance sports car. It's fast, it's slick, and it's quickly becoming the new standard if you want that top-tier experience. Okay, so the theory makes perfect sense. Double the refreshes should mean a smoother picture. But the real multi-million-dollar question is, can you actually see the difference? Does it matter in the real world? Let's take this from theory to reality. So, when you're using a 60 hertz screen, you might notice something, especially when you're moving fast. As you quickly scroll down a social media feed or a long web page, the text and images can look just a little bit blurry, maybe a little choppy. It's not bad, but you can tell it's not perfectly sharp. Now, compare that to 120 hertz. Because the screen is updating twice as often, it fills in all those tiny little gaps in the motion. And the result? Oh man, everything feels incredibly fluid. Scrolling is super crisp, swiping is instant, and the whole experience is just, well, the best way to describe it is buttery smooth. And trust me, once you see it, it is really hard to go back. So where does this pop the most? Well, you'll really notice it anytime there's fast motion. Think about doom scrolling through your social feed or playing a fast-paced game where every millisecond counts. Even just swiping between your apps and menus. In those moments, all those extra frames make everything feel so much more immediate and polished. All right, it sounds like 120 hertz is the clear winner, right? It's a total knockout. Well, not so fast. In the world of tech, better performance almost always comes at a price. So before we officially crown a champion, we have to talk about the trade-offs. And look, if we're judging purely on visual smoothness, on how responsive and premium it feels, the winner is undeniable. 120 hertz just provides a far superior experience. The performance crown goes straight to the higher refresh rate, no question. But hold on a second. Before you run out and decide that 120 hertz is an absolute must-have, we have to ask that one critical question: is that super smooth experience really worth what you have to give up for it? And here's where it gets interesting. While 120 hertz is way smoother, it comes with two pretty big downsides. First, refreshing the screen that often takes a lot more power, which means your battery life takes a hit. And second, the tech is more expensive to make, so devices with it usually cost more. On the other hand, 60 hertz is way more efficient with your battery, and it keeps the price of the device down. So the big takeaway isn't that 120 hertz is always the better choice. It's about deciding what's more important to you. Is it that peak, buttery smooth performance, or is it more practical stuff like battery life and what you're paying? Understanding that trade-off is how you make the right choice. And as tech keeps pushing forward with 144Hz, even 240Hz screens showing up, it leaves you with a really fascinating question. Once 120Hz becomes the everyday standard, what's the next big thing for our screens?